here that we've never seen before.
Well, the battleground that we saw this kind of unfold on last weekend was Volskaya, conveniently enough. Game number 2. It's actually picked by Octalysis. We know Simplicity loves that first pick slot, giving that map pick over to Octalysis. They're bringing it back here to Volskaya. Is Zul good enough without the Medivh? Maybe, maybe not. But after that last game, I can only imagine that if they're not going to get Medivh, and Zul is only complemented by the Medivh, then what other tricks do we have? Is it Diva again to hold a point? Do you got something else? I wish I could say I had notes. I wish I could say I had all this information that I could give you guys, but we are learning right along with you. That's how wild Octalysis is going down the rabbit hole. Again, when I talked to their coach before we came back to week 6, he said to me, we had a meeting, we are playing our own meta, we are doing what worked best for us last year. That was when they made their run to BlizzCon last year. They are fully embracing and embodying what they think is their own meta, what works for them, and they don't care what anybody else says. If it works, though, and the W's keep climbing, it's justified.
It is, even so much so that, you know, this weekend I got to talk to them for a small fraction of time, and they were, you know, essentially one of them asked me, you know, what's the over-under that we end up forming the meta with our meta, right? And I was like, I think even if it is the most efficient way to play the video game right now as it stands, I'm not confident others will adapt it purely on a lot of the, I guess, second thoughts that I always have kind of painted here is how deep and how far does it truly go, and how successful is it really going to be here? And again, this is a lot of stepping back to Roll20 roots is what I feel like we've seen so far. And I'm still just wondering, you know, outside of the Zul Medivh composition, what else do we got here?
It's Octalysis' rabbit hole. We're just trying to discover how far that rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, exactly. And in the way that they're painting it, it's like, this thing's bottomless, you know?
Yeah, that's a scary, like, I tried to get Draded to give me, you know, I started poking him a little when I was talking to him this week. He's like, what else do you know? I was like, well, here's a few things that I know, you know, from what I've heard. He's like, yeah, we got some other things. And I'm like, he's like, you'll just have to watch, you know. So we get to see how some of it unfolds. Look, man, I've heard of some of the other compositions. Obviously, I can't leak them here. But I can tell you that when you see them, it'll be, as much as we saw last week, something we thought we'd never see, it gets wilder. I mean, that is the scary part, is it gets more wild. Simplicity, Medivh, Maiev. Are you going to pick one up if it gets let through? Still on the Diablo train.
With that in mind, I feel like I would love to see a first pick Maiev, excuse me, on the side of Simplicity, assuming that Medivh is going to be their second ban, just to deny both of those from the hands of Draded.
K1 has looked really good on that Maiev.
I'll put K1 in anything that sets up plays. Like, as long as it can start the fight and end the fight as a single character, I go, K1, I want you on that. So I very much would like to see that from them. That's, again, assuming that Team Octalysis do not want to deny it. That in mind, one thing to also be looking out for, I think, throughout this draft, this is one of the battlegrounds that, even though White Mane is pretty meta and pretty banned out consistently here in North America, I look at and I go, I really enjoy her on. The long sustained healing, she is a outlier. You know, she's, in my opinion, the new and improved Alex Straza in that department.
It's funny because when we saw the Lifebinder changes, Alex Straza started to just show up in North America on every battleground, including Volskaya. The Medivh will be banned out, Simplicity not opting to go down that route. So we've taken away Medivh. We've taken away Maiev. And those have been the major playmakers for Octalysis, so there will be questions answered by them. But Simplicity, what do they prioritize? Is it the Urel? Is it potentially a Murden? Do they think they can get that in their 2-3 slot? Is it maybe a Phoenix? These are the heroes that we've known Simplicity. Also, Sergeant Hammer, unless it gets banned, I imagine it will be banned. But Simplicity will first pick Sergeant Hammer. They don't care.
There's the ban on Hammer. So here we are, Simplicity up to the first pick slot. Or is it a bit, you know, more standard? Something like Jimmy? I just always think of, when I think of Jimmy anymore, I don't even think of anything other than his auto attack. I keep forgetting that Genji's a hero that, in fact, makes it through drafts today. But what I was going to say is, it's just that it's his auto attack noise. You know, that like that's all I hear when I think of Jimmy. Just it's every time you refer to him.
Now I hear the Rainer's Raider more so. And then the because it's just like old StarCraft. It's just like StarCraft sounds.
I wasn't alive then. I don't know what that sounds like. Deckard and Murden here for Octalysis. I know. I'm not that young. I'm not that young.
Yeah,
I know.
Not that young.
I was trying to amplify it, make you guys seem even that much more of a gap there.
Deckard's here. Back in my day.
Sounds like me talking about heroes. 2-3 coming out from Simplicity. What are we going to get? With the Genji pairing, is the White Mane to pick up the go-to. I would love to see a White Mane in this rotation, but it doesn't scream synergy with the Genji, purely based on the fact that, well, I don't know, it's interesting because normally when you have a Genji, you want a support that doesn't have to risk its own positioning to enable a healing onto Genji. You can't heal Genji without risking your position to actually give him the heal, but you can give him the passive. And the passive lasts for 8 seconds, so you can like pre-heal him and then just be like, go my young son. And then just rely on making sure you get a full rotation out of your E and W to make up for that healing in the downtime. So what I'm trying to say is, it's weird, but Whitemane's one of the few that actually doesn't do too bad with Genji. And she's got cleanse, which is value.
It's pretty good. I'm curious when we get the Yrel Genji dive, because it's inevitable. Yrel sometimes lives in the back line, but we've seen the value of the level 4 talent giving that 35 armors. We're going to see the Blaze ban out here, but it gives you the opportunity to say, all right, if Genji goes in first, Yrel can double down and then give that armor. But if Yrel goes first, obviously if you take the cooldown at level 7, that does give you on the 1 second cooldown on that, so you can eventually stack. Genji doesn't normally stay in long. It's a matter of the coordination between those two. It'll be very interesting to see how Simplicity pulls that off.
It's a good point that you bring up here, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on what backliners Octalysis lock in. It's going to be Raynor, and we get ourselves the Leoric here.
Now we're going full meta. What is this?
This is one of those moments, too, where it's like, I want to be like, I like the Leo, because we've talked about Leo into the new mouth, but then I'm like, we watched, you know, a March of the Black King game earlier today, so I have a hard time saying that. There is no Blaze this time, so I'm thinking we're still going to get the Entomb.
Yeah, the Entomb definitely seems a lot more likely. The hero I'm looking out for from either of these teams, now no longer on the side of Simplicity because they have that Genji, they need something like a Phoenix. They're going to go Greymane Tyrael, but on this backside, Thrall or Zeratul is extremely appealing for Octalysis.
J-How, I have a question. If that wasn't a Greymane, what heroic would you expect Tyrael to go?
If that's not Greymane?
Not
oh,
Greymane.
Judgment.
Really? Because I actually think it's the other way around. I actually think now that they have the Greymane, it's going to be a Judgment.
Oh, I think you're saying without the Judgment.
Oh, no.
Oh, you would say that now that they have the Greymane, it is an all-in.
Yeah, it's an all-in Judgment, one-shot the front line, game over.
Time for a VP. 4?
Curse Bullet with Genji to be able to get the initiation. Otherwise, your essentially Sanctification, I don't know, you can get away with it. It has way more death ball-y, way more clumping, things of the like, but it's reliable on a map like Volskaya Foundry. I just can't help but feel like if the Sanctification approach is the thought process here, that demands a lot of teamwork out from Simplicity, which is a bit of a concern. But then also with the Greymane as that last pick, there's a lot of heroes that can use that dive focus and still win with the Tyrael and the Sanctification. So I look at that and I go, if you're going to have that deviation, I want to see one-shot the front line, especially with a Leoric, very vulnerable to that playstyle. Valeera is as well, and also Decker.
Genji does a really good job of decloaking Valeera because you can poke away with those shurikens. And when you take Valeera out of that cloak, that stealth mode, it takes away a lot of her strength in her kit, whether it's opening up with a silence, which is generally the one. But you get that opening, if you do establish that on something like a Malfurion, all of a sudden that's very troublesome. Greymane, you can obviously trade out. There's talents you can pick up to potentially have block charges. Genji obviously has fast auto, Greymane not so much. There's several different tools, I think, for Valeera here. There's also some counters. I'm eager to see this matchup. As we head into game number 2 here, Octalysis up 1-0 here as we go to Volskaya.
I'm curious all about whether or not the decision is into the Sanctification versus the Judgment, because it is pretty curious. Like, the Greymane should normally scream, we're wanting to get that kind of all-in 5-man Sanctification death ball composition, but I'm not so sure that against Octalysis composition you immediately want to deal with that. There's enough disengage to make the Sanctification not look so appealing and things of the like to where I go, well, you got the Greymane, you might as well just rip the Curse Bullet instead.
Well, the one thing that will be interesting if we do get that style, or even around that, regardless of that style, which I think can be incredibly effective, is Malfurion. If you dive in any regard and Valeera's on that flank, can you live? We've seen Valeera minus an Abathur actually struggle as we see Zuna right out of the gates, that drain life, but the amount of follow-up damage that they had, Yrel, level 1 getting cracked.
Definitely a moment there of definitely not respecting the kill potential that Octalysis had. You could tell once the Drain Hope hit that he hit that weird moment of like, oh man, I need to get out of here, but then going like, oh man, is the Drain Hope still going to just kill me anyway, so do I need to just sacrifice myself and make something happen? He goes back in, tries to hit a full value hammer to stun and keep himself alive, but the Leo damage a little bit too much. Octalysis take first blood, and more importantly, that first kill at moments like this, it's not the experience gain that you should be concerned about, it's the minion wave control that it gives you, especially if you're a team that doesn't have wave clear. And you end up getting a kill like that very early on, it sets you back miles here. And honestly, the fact that Simplicity is able to pick up a camp and not worry about an invade and things like those are moments where you're like, oh, thank you, because that first kill really could be the thing setting that tone.
There's going to be a really fun interaction. This is body blocks for days, but nice roots going down. Justin, however, lands the hammer, allowing Draded to go in. Draded able to get back into that stealth mode. Is K1 Pro trying to reveal there, but this is another kill.
J-Out, Justin's brain is huge. Did you see? That was mid-disengage. He was in mid-disengage. He's like, nope, I've just got this. His snap hits it there. My goodness. Unable to make it out. He was in Morgan form, now he's in human form, now he's dead. Very well done there by Justin. Goku able to make it out with a baby Wraith walk.
The matchup that I'm looking forward to the most, Dread, is Deckard post level 16. When against this comp, whether you see a Genji or potentially the Sanctification, the stun on Deckard's auto. Is I want to see that matchup and Buds stepping forward to interrupt something, to find that mini stun, maybe get an interrupt, maybe get somebody on their way out, maybe interrupt the Sanctification. It seems likely that will be there, but we've also seen the trade up. But we've seen some Deckards really make use of that 16. You just sit on that last auto and wait for the moment for that mini stun.
Yeah, and that into the Sanctification, that's a hero that typically, really struggle with that playstyle. Without the Eyes in the Dark, they don't expect a diving gray main. Hold on here, before we go any farther, we got they're contesting over top of this support camp. Urella's yet to make the rotation in time. She's just now going to join Simplicity here as Octalysis already pick up the biotic emitter. Now they're going to make the rotation down. That was a very quick pickup for Octalysis. If they pick up a lot of percentage for themselves, likely to do so. Now a weapon up.
And nobody established control just yet. Both teams able to stand on point. We got the shields on one side and Deckard passing out the potions. You can see they're all around the retreat points for Simplicity, and Justin is going to get that shield every 6 seconds. The standoff continues for Octalysis. Dreadnought, though, they're a lot closer to 7, which is generally when we see teams start to take control over the control point.
But even situations like we just saw right there where Valir is able to bait out the deflect out of the Genji, then suddenly that 16 mark we were talking about with the Deckard might be a lot more problematic as one little slap of the old staff. And suddenly that's a dead Genji here. Root lands onto Prismat, forcing out his heal. Not enough to threaten them. Zuna is going to go in there with the leap, hits the 2-man knockback. All the heals going down with the turret. Octalysis healing up here, now gaining some percentage for themselves as Simplicity back out. Tap, look to reinitiate. Cafe actually questioning if he needs to go help. Will do so to make sure K1 Pro survives. But that actually sets them back another 10 seconds due to that small back here attempt from Simplicity. Very well done here by Octalysis.
Yeah, it's always fun when you can see those plays. I mean, the timing of pro play is always fun to watch. Like those small interrupts just have so much. The ripple effect, I guess is what we could call that, is the timing of which you could do things differently. It changes the pacing. I always love to see those plays. That's why you always see like the rotations of the solo laners, things of that nature. But that right there, I'm glad you pointed that out. It's such a fun thing.
Knockback here onto Justin, dodges. K1 Pro goes in with the Swift Strike. Zuna getting poked away. There is Prismat, eats a Root there. Root also landing onto Goku. Wraithwalk helps him out with a 4-man lockdown by Bud. Zuna falls very low here. Hosey trying to kite away. Disengages there. Justin's not going to let that go for free. Draded unable to get any of the kills there. Goes into stealth now. Drops the silence on to Tiger JK, who heals the team alive. 99% and counting here in the OT for Octalysis. But Simplicity survive here, J-How, against all odds.
They're in it. They're going to fight for it. We even see Wizen Duelist picked up by Greymane. They are not backing down from a team fight.
But J-How, look at the levels right now, right? Leo's off-soaking. Let's just paint a picture where Simplicity loses this next fight when Raynor makes his way back. This is a all-or-nothing play. Pretend to risk this kind of decision-making, they're accepting a huge deficit if they struggle here.
I think another point to go into what you're saying is that even if they give up, even if Octalysis walks away from the control point to get 10,
they're still ahead.
It's still a long ways before Simplicity ever even gets close to 100%. So it is a very interesting take here. Simplicity definitely all in, as you said.
Buds throws down the Root, only got a lockdown 2 this time. He will end up having to back here while looking to pick up some of his mana. Octalysis may even just wait for the 10 spike at this point.
Yeah.
It's weird. There's just enough experience where I think they can reliably do that on the battleground. Rotations, other things in between might deter that, but it's possible here. And again, there's no world where Octalysis gives this up for free unless they somehow want to beta fight beyond that point. And so Simplicity here, how do I say this? They're just stalling their opponent from picking up a major objective at this point in time, but they aren't gaining anything.
I think the only thing, and I want to go back to the point you made about how they're pretty much all in, because if and when, now they will, especially with the 10-tier advantage, the longer that goes and your opponent gets to level 10, I think this is the reason why we see them trying to buy as much time as they can. It's almost like damage control, because now Octalysis has the 10-tier spike, which I think is why we saw even King Caffeine use his Eldruins to go in, buy a couple of extra seconds for his team to try and get 10. But when you're all in on that play and then you inevitably give up that 10, now all of a sudden the defense is almost impossible. You cannot defend this as easily without 10, and Mouth actually almost got tracked down there. But you require a certain level of, okay, we're all in on this. If we don't get it, it's catastrophic or potentially there. That's why we saw some damage control in that timing. Yeah, and the damage control was really well done by Simplicity for the most part. They really did keep a lot of people alive. Like I talked about the healing over the first initiation by Tiger JK. They have done a lot right here, and their composition doesn't come online till 10. But it doesn't change the fact that some of the decision-making made was very high-risk, medium-reward type circumstances, and is part of the reason Octalysis here is now kind of blowing this game out of the water for game number 2 on Volskaya Foundry with the double off-soak for Leoric, the first protector itself being picked up for itself. And then likely here, the 13 talent tier and standard Volskaya. This team has now a snowball. Where is Simplicity going to force? We still haven't gotten a heroic choice, though, out of the Diablo, or excuse me, out of the Tyrael. Go for the throw. That says 100% this is Sanctification. That there, you don't go for the throw and Judgment. That's not how this works. Even if you go X-Strike, because Judgment has a knockback feature of the targets around him, has the knockback, but hold on, here comes Draded on the backside, already getting on the Judgment it. And there we go, the Judgment is there, and they're going in. X-Strike coming down, Bud surviving for now, Dread. They end up surviving for now. All the damage coming out on the Buds. He's kiting away, keeping himself up. The Heroic Cube ends up going down. Now Draded on the back line, getting damage. Arnett Defender is going to be popped. Goku with an Omega flank here on that Leoric. He has no Entomb available. Stormbolt lands onto Hosty. Heroic Cube locks down 3. Huge scroll of ceiling here. Value down. Draded coming in. There's going to be the silence. The follow-up. He does get the kill. That's going to be the first one onto Hosty, as now we can see K1 Pro. He's trying to survive on that, as even the turret was dropped down, and Octalysis comes in. Finally get the kill they're looking for, and Draded is not done yet. He's coming in for another. He's trying to find another, but they need a follow-up CC there as the Moonfire comes out by Tiger JK. So, J-How, we have to go back to why I say there's no way you do this, and then we end up seeing it. The reason why we don't see go for the throat with Judgment more often than not is because when you do that, that means you're Judgmenting a backliner, and you have to Judgment a backliner and then go for the throat, the backliner, all in completely. It removes the forgivability on how the approach to the fight has to happen. We know how Simplicity has to approach this, and now watch Octalysis the rest of the game. Their backliners will be so ridiculously safe in positioning that it's actually going to look kind of silly, but it's because the approach to a team fight is so linear, so close-minded, if you will, for Simplicity now, that it's difficult. This isn't impossible. It just causes them to be so all in or nothing that I can't help but feel like it's maybe too big of a risk here. Zuna does survive for now. As Cap goes back and gets locked out. Root there, and here comes the Entomb. The Eldruins was used. That's how he got there. That's going to be the kill. That is unfortunate for King Caffeine, but Octalysis, the snap recognition, Goku comes in. He's like, well, you're stuck here now because we saw that Eldruins. You're not going anywhere. I think that's a great point to bring up, is just how fast Octalysis was able to punish that. Because most teams just go, hey, he's got no Q. Let's siege mid a little bit longer. Octalysis wasted 0 time. Made the transition down, and why they're up 4-0 in terms of kills, up that 13 talents here. Leo getting the side soak as Genji flanking from above. K1 Pro in the 4 versus 4. No 13 yet for Simplicity. And they aren't going to pull the trigger here. Not going to go quite yet. Yeah, had he had the 13, and potentially if he opts to go with the flow like water, that might have been enough to have a short enough cooldown to try and get in, create some havoc, and then get out. But no 13. No way to contest. This is where Simplicity's composition, if it's going to hold its own, JL, it has to make a fight. This is one of the only areas where you can dependably get a fight where you know Buds is going to be visible out in a situation where he maybe can die, and that everybody is going to be able to get on that target along with the Tyrael and the Judgment. The other kill targets,
I mean, it's pretty much anybody but the double warriors. As long as you execute one of those, it's mission accomplished here for Simplicity.
Well, 9 stacks on the Wizened Duelist, so definitely stacking up. Not tremendous numbers by any means, but definitely something to consider. Justine's like, that's a nice route there, have a spray. 16 talent tier we find ourselves, so I really like the approach here, Dreadnought, by Simplicity, to get on this first, force the control point timer. So if Team Octalysis wants to contest, they are put on a timer. Unfortunately for Simplicity, Octalysis is nearing that 16 talent tier, so Simplicity just trying to buy time again. Don't know if they can really get the fight, but they're awfully close. Genji not here yet as he's just now making his rotation up.
Zuna.
Oh my.
Oh, two-man entomb. They're already dropped by Goku. Hosty on the backline already. A lot of damage going on to Malfurion and Judgment used on the backline, but Bud's able to kite away for now. Hosty trying to get the execution. Stay a while and listens. Gonna lock down one. Go for the throw. Actually gets the kill onto Bud's. Ardent Defender healing up Zuna here. Draded. Trying to kite, keep himself alive, but K1 Pro looking for a reset there on the backline, and if he finds it, he finds more than one. There it is. Reset onto Raynor. And Simplicity here hold on this fight.
I don't know if that, I would say there was an impatient approach by Octalysis going in right before 16, but for Simplicity, they picked the best one, but hold on a second. Urel somehow surviving for now, does survive, and that's going to be another takedown as we see Valera fall. Simplicity, they've got some fight left in them, Dreadnought.
They very much do here, and it is going to
body
them
blocks.
a lot.
Oh!
The holy ground. Avatar. Dwarf toss up in a second. Yeah, there's no way he's going down with this one.
But that's Avatar down. That is Avatar down. Another play being made by Simplicity. Maybe too many resources into there as they did end up losing quite a bit of health. But they do get the Protector, and that's the main thing, is changing up this. We look at the scoreboard, just a level behind now for Simplicity, and they'll make up some of that distance here as they have this Protector.
And so you were raising the kind of concern, you know, is that Octalysis maybe being a little bit impatient with the initiation on top without the 16, things of the like there. The one thing I want to highlight is just whether it be too impatient or not, I think it is mainly Bud's positioning. Notice how he was not with the remainder of the original initiation, and that the second you think either one of them is split, there you see the dive into the backline. That is what I said. I don't expect that Octalysis to let happen. This is preventable with the decision-making to go into the X-Strike, go for the throw and the Judgment together. So that is something that, number one, great job by Simplicity finding that and punishing that. And number two, in the next fights, we need to be looking at Octalysis have to find a way that Bud's, there's no situation he's judgmented alone.
He was the one that went in. Bud's wants to be the playmaker. He went in to try and create that. I think he did help to get that kill. When we saw Stay a While and Listen popped, it was like, I'm about to die here. Maybe I can lock somebody down. But Genji X-Strike, well, it came down right on top of him. So Simplicity did have some really good counterplay in that fight. It is going to be fun to watch. You posed it in the beginning during the first fight in the way that we saw the positioning. Octalysis didn't necessarily make the full-on adjustments because Simplicity is able to find those holes. It's like you see it once, it's like, okay, we can do this again, and they made it happen.
And normally when you face against these compositions, the second fight is the most indicative one, not only because it holds the most weight as we hit our pause here, but also because it shows whether or not you're actually concerned about your approach to the team fight. When you get into a standard game of competitive Heroes of the Storm, you've got a game plan. You go, this is how we win the fights. I'm going to kill you. They're not going to kill us, right? Usually you're confident, you've got it in your head that it's going to work out. And so while you're approaching into the team fight in that manner, and then it's like we want to, you know, whether it be one-shot the front line or things like, you just look to either enable those as frequently as you can or break them up, your opponents up as fast as you can. And that's one of those situations where I feel like Bud's put the math together. How do they win these fights, right? It has to be through that order. Find a way to be able to adjust. I think that they definitely know it, but it's looking at how they do that in the fights. Fight number one, it's, again, fool me once. But number two, if you don't see him adjust, I don't even think I blame that on him. It's usually a whole team being like, nah, that wasn't the problem. And it's how fast, who considers it the problem, and how accurately you can essentially determine it. And to be honest, maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe it isn't the Deckard is the all-in, you know, focus. Maybe Raynor is equal a problem, and you see, you know, Bud's overcompensating to try and make sure Raynor isn't under pressure.
It's just wild because it doesn't matter where you're at in the team fight, because we've seen Abathur or not, they are hitting that Valera on the backside. The Valera is always in that flank position, and without that sanctification, it has just been a matter of, well, we're going to all in the other side. And whenever one side goes in, Valera happily goes to the other one. Obviously has that cloud, that smoke bomb in the backside, able to survive if needed. But the way that they've been able to control, Hosty's been able to stay alive on this Greymane, so the Wizened Duelist stacks up to 15 stacks now, so halfway there. that becomes far more threatening. Go for the throat is real, but when you have those amplified auto attacks on you, who needs the extra auto attack range at level 7 when they are always in your face? So the Wiz and Duelist, it's paying dividends. Whether you're in the middle of a fight or not, it will always have that value, barring if you're at 0 stacks. But it's much better off to move into that. And speaking of much better off, we're much better off getting back into this game, Tread.
Talking about the Bud's talent choices, also at 16, not going with the stun. If he was so concerned about the dive, it feels like he would go for that survivability. Talking about survivability, K1 Pro's going to need it. The Entomb locking down 3 there. Huge scroll of ceiling value, locking down 4, along with the 4-man stay a while and listen, but everybody makes it out. Hosey trying to find Draded is the first to drop. In fact, is Leoric. X-Strike there from K1 Pro. Knockback coming out. Justin trying to kill Tiger JK. He will find that kill. 1 for 1 here as Hosey goes down.
He tried. You could see the damage from those auto attacks was real, but Draded coming in, he said the damage of my Valera is real, as we see K1 just trying to get the disrupt, making sure that they can't cloak. There's going to be the stalk, the pursuit. Zuna and team able to walk away. King Caffeine getting every bit of disengage that they can. It's a 2-for-1 trade in favor of Octalysis.
Jay-How, when we go into from a pause to action, my heart just goes from like, all right, I'm ready to get into the game, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, the action's unfolding here. Woo!
Didn't take long.
No, it did not take very long at all there. But I will say, that fight, for how chaotic and split up it is, that's what Simplicity's comp normally should be pretty darn good at. I feel like Draded did an amazing job of distracting Hosey, trying to buy a lot of aggro coming out from him, not so much onto the kill target itself. But Simplicity, the fact that that fight was so chaotic and did not get as much success as they did in the last one, I feel like that's one of those moments where Octalysis goes, we maybe have figured out that adjustment that we need.
Well, Simplicity Dreadnought, 20 almost here for Octalysis. For Simplicity, they need to take a fight, and they need to take it soon. They have
a judgment, which is really good at that, Jay.
Yeah, they have potential to maybe get at or near 20 for the defense.
Time's up, let's do this.
If they give that, but it is almost time's up, let's do this. It feels like Goku, he's not a target. He's just waiting to press his E button if anybody winds up on him. So
one weird thing to note about Tyrael, actually, since his adjustments, I'm not even quite confident because Judgment's such a rare pickup that it functions in the same manner, but it used to be when somebody be max range and you start it, if you break fog, it automatically drops the Judgment. And so if you start the channel at the maximum range position while the opponent's still mounted and you were just mounted, all it does is dismount you and no Judgment goes off because they break fog, and you're a sad panda who's dismounted for 4 seconds. So what I'm saying is it matters when we see that Judgment kind of pulled at this point in time, especially if we're kind of towing around fog, because it can actually show who CAF is looking to initiate on. 20 seconds out, or excuse me, not 20 seconds out, 2 seconds out. Level 20 still here for Octalysis. And now the question is, what does Simplicity do? Siege on top seems to be the answer now, but we know the trade-off eventually will be matched by Octalysis. And then they'll have to deal with that pesky, pesky Punisher.
they're actually Hearthing.
Well,
at this point, they would give up the keep. And I think that's the main reason for the defense, as we see the disengage. Goku coming in on the flank. No Valera here, and the Buried Alive just missed. You could actually see the silence portion as it started to come down on top of them, but they sidestepped it at the last second. Is a short cooldown, but still a big miss.
Yeah, and part of that, you know, I feel like comes down to looking for max value rather than just taking a very confident 1-2 man. Goku without that might be something that costs him. Part of the reason late game is so difficult there for Octalysis, and now 80 seconds, or 80% in counting here still for Octalysis. When it comes to that bottom protector with this, Simplicity now have to back out. This is actually really cool because it's not, you know, going to be losing too much, but look how much time is lost right now when it comes to Valera inside of this, right? The health is very, very beefy. Rarely do you see a full kill onto it. It's just removing in total, what do we see, 15 seconds there? Might be something that at this stage of the game matters because Simplicity was looking at a almost unbearable circumstance before that, J-How.
Well, they're going to have 20 tier if another minion wave or two comes in. That's why the reason we saw Genji there so long. Another minion wave behind this protector will give them 20, maybe some trickle-down XP as well. Zuna providing that armor over to Tiger JK. They do have the defense. King Caffeine coming down on the flank, but snipped out by Draded. Draded's actually going to be revealed there by King Caffeine, meaning the attention, but the root's going to be there. There's going to be the Nature's Cure. Hosty not able to make it out alive. The protector coming in. That might try and open it up.
Judgment onto the back line. Buds is going to be the focus here. Everybody focusing down onto him, but The shielding is there, the heals is there, the stay a while and listen gonna drop, and everybody just taking a solid nap there on Simplicity. The combo coming through. King Caffeine and friends trying to dive. X-Strike gets used, but that Protector has way too much damage. K1 Pro kiting away. The Ancient Blessing is used. Ardent Defender will heal Zuna right back up, but now 40 seconds of Simplicity down 2 members. Octalysis surely can take this game.
Well, we're going to see Simplicity try and walk away. The roots are going to be there because the slow was enough to keep Justin on that Murd. But with this Protector, there's only 17 seconds left on that. Genji actually had 3 full resets on that, or 2 full resets for 3 full casts of that X-Strike. Does have it available again. See if it's enough for this defense. There's going to be the knockback, but the Buried Alive is going to be here. Trying to provide that armor is Zuna, but the damage is there. The deflect just in time. X-Strike coming down, but the shield's already down on the core.
It's all about resets for K1 Pro. If he gets them, he has a chance, but Dreaded focusing, he's the lowest target there, and he's not going to be low enough for a reset, at least not yet. 30% and counting. X-Strike does not find the reset, and with that, it looks like game number 2 here goes over to Octalysis, breaking the meta once more and taking a lead 2-0 over Simplicity.
I've never seen that many resets on X-Strike at the end of the game. I mean, K1 Pro had max value. The big shield coming in there from whoever was driving that Protector during that big skirmish after that was money. That was clutch. That's one of the main reasons we saw that of Octalysis stay alive. But we're seeing it again here. Justin basically playing Bruiser Assassin there on that Murd, and he loves to be aggressive, getting that damage in. But the Valera working out this time. We've seen them run it with the Abathur before. This time around, we're seeing it without the need for it. I wondered, would we get a Thrall? Would we get the Zeratul? More meta heroes that we would generally see in that last spot. They said, nah, we're still going to go our own flavor. And they get the Valera and they get the victory.
I just find it funny that I say we, but I was the one who posed a lot of the conversation between Greymane and Tyria. What is the direction you go? And I was like, you know what? I feel like this is one of those moments, maybe a little bit of deviation, not the sanctification. And then the minute we see the go for the throw, I'm like, okay, you got to sanct with that. And so what I'm saying is just from beginning to end, I was like wrong, but so right all at the same time. And I think it's more just like, you know, I was right for the wrong reasons probably, which means you're wrong in the first place. I just find it funny that it was so backwards and back and forth because, you know, we started off with like, you know, should we? Well, with the Greymane, how does that work? But it looks... Honestly, it looked a lot better than I thought it would. Normally, compositions that approach teamfighting that linearly are very easy to just be like, what if I just don't die if you're buds? And you just sit back and you go, all right, that team fight's over. Let's go ahead and win the game. But it very much wasn't the case. A lot more competitive than I expected.
Well, in this series, it's one thing I know. If loving different talents is wrong, I don't want to be right. We have Octalysis up 2-0. We're going to see if they can close it out behind their own meta or whether Simplicity has a way to fight back in this series. We'll find out after this break.